Hey, everybody. Welcome to Ask Me Anything number 6. Thanks for being a part of this. I'm really excited about it. Here's a question for everybody. Can you hear my air conditioner in the background? Can you hear it? And does it sound good or bad? Let me know in the comments. If you can hear it, I'll turn it off because I don't want anything to interfere with what we're about to do, because what we're about to do is very special to me. I love doing these. And look at that. People are already in the comments putting questions in, and that's incredible. I had gathered a bunch of questions beforehand so that I could pitch myself those while we were getting going. But I'll just do the people who showed up now and do their questions. I'm amazed. Thank you for being a part of this. Also, if this is like the first time you watched and Ask Me Anything, definitely ask me anything. The vibe here is try to ask me some insane questions. I love them. And I love, more than anything else, I love the like insanity that emerges from the chat. I love like the culture that you have created in the live chatting. Love that. I want to stoke that as much as possible. Okay, cool. All right. Oh, and look, you guys are telling me that look at this guy gets it. Look at Lily Jones. Lily Jones gets it. Can't hear it. You have a dynamic mic, my dude. I do. This is why I use a dynamic mic, is for times like this. One, it's so that I can have this exchange with Lily Jones. Two, it's so that, the subway and other bullshit like my air conditioner isn't really an issue. But sometimes I still have to ask if it's an issue because I live in fear. All right, let's dive in. Look at who was first. James Taylor. That's pretty cool that James Taylor is watching my Ask Me Anything. If anybody has questions about James Taylor and his relationship with Carole King, maybe you can get in the comments and ask James Taylor your questions. Anyway, very humbling for James Taylor to be watching my YouTube live stream. Are you into always on recording and cataloging of beats, riffs, grooves? How do you do it? No, I don't. I'm not always. If you mean like, do I just push record like all day, every day, and then record a bunch of crap and then listen to it later? I actually kind of don't do that. For one thing, I don't want to have to listen to hours and hours of stuff to find the good. I like to sort of screen as the ideas come to me. I like to screen them. Now, if I decide, oh, that is sort of a cool thing, then I'll try to save it. I'll sing it into my phone. I'll make a voice memo, or I'll write it down. I do try to grab the stuff that I think is good, but I don't just grab everything ever, because I don't even think you're really saving time, because then you got to go back and listen to a bunch of, like huge gigabyte files of yourself not having ideas. So, it's like, I don't know if you're really doing yourself a favor by making yourself listen to your own junk. Also, I feel bad that I'm changing the subject a little bit here, but I feel bad sometimes that I rewatch stuff too much. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like, instead of watching something new, you'll just watch a movie you already like. I do that a lot. I basically like 5 movies, and I just watch those 5 movies all the time. It's like The Godfathers, The Terminators, and Goodfellas. Like, it's really hard for me to watch any movie because I'm just like, well, I could watch those. But then I feel bad that I'm like wasting my life watching the same shit over and over and over again. I do the same thing with my favorite band. I listen to Van Halen every day. I still just listen to Van Halen. I'm like, well, why listen to something else? I know what I want to hear. You know what I mean? So I feel bad that I'm just like reliving shit over and over and over again instead of exposing myself to new experiences. And I have a freaky version of that with my own life. Like, if I just, do you see where I'm going with this? Like, if I just recorded myself playing for 4 hours, and then I have to go listen to those 4 hours to decide what was good. Now I'm just like doing a rewatch of my own life. So as you can see, the answer to your question is no, because I overthink it and have many complicated personal issues with the whole thing. It's very complicated and paralyzing. I wish you the best, James. Where do you go for inspiration ideas when you get stuck? Oh, that's perfect. Well, normally I go to the folder of like saved snippets that I was just talking about. Like, if I had an idea last week, I put it in my little file of notes, or I put it in my voice memo, whatever thing. And then I just go, I have one on my phone and one on my computer, and they're slightly different. So sometimes it's like, whatever idea is going to be the idea. If I'm checking it on my phone, I might get somewhere different than if I check the one on my computer, because it's just separate lists of ideas. If it comes to me when I have my phone, it goes in my phone. If it comes to me when I'm at my computer, it goes in my computer. And I don't really work too hard to sync them up. I just let them be different. I let it be a little bit chaotic that way. Because I guess I assume it'll make it more artistic and creative. Who knows if that's true? So I go there, but the problem is that like most of those ideas are the ideas that I haven't used yet. So they're like kind of the rejects. You know what I mean? Like I'll have like a couple good ideas that then quickly get used because they're good. And then the rest of my ideas folder thing is just the ideas I haven't been able to use for years. So I go back through them. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that one. I could never do anything with that. And I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that one too. Yeah, I could never do anything with that. So, sometimes they're kind of useless also, worth noting. So then what do? Well, if we're being honest, then I would probably rewatch the Godfather movies and just sort of have the same thoughts I've already had about how good it is. And then I'll probably like re-listen to my favorite band and just have the same thoughts about how good they are. I wish I had a better answer for you, Aiden Miles. Look at your little user picture there. It's a saxophone. Well, maybe there's your answer. Maybe go listen to John Coltrane or something. Have you ever heard of him? How condescending and annoying would it be if I was like, oh, you like saxophone? Have you ever tried listening to John Coltrane? That's helpful. No, that's a joke. I realize that that's not very useful to you probably at this point. Once you make it to the stage of life where you've decided that your YouTube identity picture is going to be a saxophone, I'm assuming you've already learned how to play and solo over giant steps. I'm assuming that's like when you upload the picture, YouTube is like, whoa. Aiden Miles, we see you're trying to upload a picture of a saxophone. Please also upload a completely improvised, 32 bars of giant steps. We have to clear it first. So I'm assuming you got through that fine. And, everything I've just been saying for the past minute has just sort of been useless to you. Where else do I go for inspiration? You know what I was doing for a while? Before Plague World, I would go to these noise concerts in Brooklyn. There was this venue, man, I hope they're still open, called Mirror in the Woods. And they would have these noise concerts. And I would go there and like just bring a notebook and like listen to these crazy experimental noise performances and just like try to write stream of consciousness the whole time and like try to sort of hear shit in the noise and like try to hear a fragment of a melody or a fragment of an idea or like a rhythm or something, just try to grab whatever I could. And that was pretty cool. I late in life, I came to appreciate like pure noise bullshit. And because the funny thing that would happen at these shows is that like you start to become kind of a snob too, there'll be like some guy will come out with a guitar and he'll bang the strings with a screwdriver and then he'll like bang the strings with a wire mesh and you'd be like, oh, wire mesh isn't as good. Go back to the screwdriver. And like once I made it to that point, I was like, oh, this is cool. I love this now. Like you get to the level where you're like, bro, this screwdriver was it. Or like sometimes it'll be a performance where it's literally just like one noise over and over and over again. And it's like torture. And then they like do a different noise. And it's like, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, that was cool. You know what I mean? It's like somebody gets up there and like just goes like this for like 19 minutes. And then on like the 20th minute, they just go like this. And you're like, whoa. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's like the best work of art I've ever seen, but I did come to respect how much you can do with just sort of like tormenting an audience and creating an expectation. And then, you create an expectation and then you do something to the expectation. Maybe you fulfill it, or maybe you abuse it. I don't know, but something to think about. All right, let's keep moving. I feel like I'm got a lot of questions and there's a bunch of new comments. I'm too afraid to scroll down. I started at the top. I'm just going to work my way through. Which takes longer, producing your songs or your videos? If by songs you mean like the songs that are on Spotify, like the stuff that's on my albums, like if you go to my Bandcamp page and listen to songs, if you mean that, or a YouTube video about pedals, the songs take much longer. I take the songs seriously. I think of the songs as like my real work, I take the videos pretty seriously too, but to me, it's like when I release a song, like I have this sense that it's like now that's a song in the world, just like Bohemian Rhapsody is a song in the world. You know what I mean? So I feel like you're going up against Bohemian Rhapsody. You better make sure you think that song is good. When I put a video on YouTube, I'm going up against like, you know, some guy like falling off a riding mower and farting. You see what I'm saying? It's like, it's just a fucking YouTube video. So I can release YouTube videos without having the same sort of like crippling anxiety about whether I'm willing to sort of have my whole legacy be defined by it. But if what you meant is what takes longer, producing the little musical elements of my video or the little video parts of the video, the music still probably takes a little bit longer because I do a lot of takes, even though I just said that thing about how I don't really give a fuck about YouTube because it's just a bunch of people farting. Even so, I still, anytime I release anything and me playing guitar, part of me thinks like, you know, it's got to be fucking cool, right? For all I know, Sheila E. is watching pedal videos, so I got to be ready for when she clicks on mine. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'll do a lot of fucking takes of the stupid little thing where I'm showing that like the pedal makes a noise. I don't like doing a lot of takes, but I'll do a lot of takes if you let me, because I start to get crazy about like that weird noise has to be beautiful. You know, like I believe like that noise, even if it's just even if it's just like, listen how that pedal does this. I'll be like, it's got to have the gesture. It's got to be like a and then a and it's got to like, that has to be right. You know what I mean? So the music usually takes me longer. I'll look at the Coltrane guy asked a lot of questions. Are there effects / production techniques, etc., that you avoid either because you don't like them or just to be different? Oh, I'm sure there are. Although now I can't think of any. Oh, well, you know, I don't really use wah-wah, you know, because I just feel like we did it. It's been covered. You know what I mean? Like Jimi Hendrix, I think, nailed it. And that was like a long time ago. So now what are we going to do? I'll tell you who I think did it cool after Hendrix. I like the way Soundgarden used wah-wah pedals. And sometimes there's Nine Inch Nails wah-wah stuff that I think is cool. But I feel like Nine Inch Nails does cooler stuff than their cool wah-wah stuff. You know, Metallica is one of my favorite bands of all time. And I don't even really like most of that wah-wah playing, although I like some of it. I feel like, there's so many questions here that I started with like 3 and we're like 20 minutes in and I've ignored everybody who showed up. I'm sorry for ignoring you all. I'm going to try to move faster. Oh, look, here's Lily Jones again. Can you do how to be advanced with GarageBand? Like right now, tell me the advantages of GarageBand, please. Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. So one is use the GarageBand pitch shifter. Instant home run. Go and also the little like dumb synthesizers that are in GarageBand are also gonna be good. So like you can open like a MIDI track, or like I think they call it a software instrument, and you can write a little part just by clicking and dragging and drawing little MIDI notes. I mean, if you don't know how to do that, I would say take the plunge. It's okay if you're not great at it, but like see if you can teach yourself how to write a little MIDI note stupid thing in GarageBand, and then you can write one thing and then have every single different GarageBand synthesizer play that thing. You can just go through and keep changing what you selected so you can hear every different instrument. Instant home run would be pick like their piano and then put in the native GarageBand pitch shifter effect and have it pitch shift the piano up a octave, 12 half steps, and it'll sound good. I mean, it's going to sound like something I would like. You know what I mean? It's not going to sound like an Adam Lambert record. You know, it's going to sound like I was there with you, but it's going to sound good. Here's something I noticed. This is for like after you've been doing this for a while. Sometimes GarageBand pitch shifting will delay the thing. You can brush up against latency. If you run a lot of pitch shifters, sometimes the parts will come in late. So what you got to do then is just drag it forward. You got to eyeball it. So I do this sometimes with my GarageBand songs, and a lot of the songs on my album were GarageBand synthesizers. Like I take GarageBand seriously. But anyway, I'll pitch shift stuff till it's like crazy, and then it'll start to be too late. You know, it won't be on the beat, and it not in the hip way. It'll be late in a bad way. So then I have to just sort of guess how much forward I have to drag it so that it's early, so that it comes in on time. That's pretty advanced. Hi, CA. Oh, right, because people call me Cyber Attack. That's fine. You can do that. My name is Ivan. You know, I thought of Cyber Attack as the band name because my YouTube channel was from before I started making pedal videos. I had a band called Cyber Attack. Now, the band was still mostly just me and hired guys. I mean, the hired guys are great and I love them. But, you know, I always thought of Cyber Attack as like Nine Inch Nails. Like, Nine Inch Nails is kind of a band, but it's kind of just Trent Reznor. I mean, now it's Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Don't want to be disrespectful to Atticus Ross, but for like decades, Nine Inch Nails was like the name of a band, but it's really Trent Reznor. And if you're like talking to Trent Reznor, I think you just call him Trent. I don't think people are like, hello, Nine, right? So that's always how I think of Cyber Attack, and then people call me Cyber Attack, which is fine. I'm not complaining. It's just funny to me. Anyway, we can now read the rest of your question. You are really good at figuring out how a pedal works. Thank you. What do you do when you first fire up a new pedal? How do you get to know it? Well, you know, sometimes, especially if I'm under time pressure, I'll even read the manual before I get the pedal. You know, Strymon will be like, we've got these updated pedals. You want to do a video for it? And I'll be like, yes. And then they'll ship them to me, but I'll ask for the PDF of the manual before they ship them to me. So I'll just read the manual and try to look for, you know, the boundaries. Like, oh, I wonder what it's like if you put that on 100, or I wonder what it's like if you put that on minimum, or like, I wonder if you can make the, you know, I don't know. I'll look for something funny in the manual to try. So that's something I do. You know, sometimes manuals will say things like, you know, you're not supposed to use this pedal with a such and such or whatever. And sometimes I'll try that unless it's like a hazard, unless they're like, you're going to burn your house down if you do it. Don't do that. Or sometimes they'll be like, you know, this pedal was intended to do such and such. So then I'll try to be like, oh, that's what you think it was intended to do, huh? Let's see if we can do the opposite of what it is. You know, I'll try to just sort of like ruin whatever the designer's vision for it was. You know, I'll try to think about it that way. I realize I feel like this isn't a good answer because it's all intellectual. All right, so here's something that might help. It's a little more practical. I already just told you that I like think about it a lot, right? I read the manual and I think about it, and I look at the pedal and I think about it, and then I'll have ideas and then I'll try the ideas. Well, you know, sometimes I'll try the idea and it just won't sound as good as I thought it would. Usually that's what happens. Usually I'll be like, oh, we got to try doing the thing, and then I'll do the thing and it doesn't sound that good. The crucial thing is to then like make an adjustment to what you're actually hearing. Like, don't necessarily just try to make it do what you thought it was going to do. Listen to what it did and then see if you can just push what it already did. Or like, there's a songwriting version of this too. Like sometimes I'll hear something in my mind and I'll be like, oh, that sounds good. Let's figure that out. And then when I figure it out, it doesn't sound as good. And, you know, that sucks. But instead of trying to then be like, well, how do I make it sound more like what's in my head? Instead of that, I'll be like, well, I'm going to hear how it is. And then how can I just improve what it is? You know, I thought it was going to sound like this really fucking cool, like evil heavy metal riff. And it doesn't really sound like that. It's actually a little bit kind of like jaunty or whatever, you know, and that's not really a quality I like. But how could I push that so far that then it becomes some sort of like insane, like breakneck disco jaunt? Like, well, that might sound kind of cool if I can sort of make it hyper. So, you know, I'll try to do that. It's like you have the idea, you try the thing. It's not really what you hoped it would be. Instead of then trying to make it more the thing in your head, try to make it more the thing it is and see if you can exaggerate that. You know, there's a piece of advice. Can you, oh, we did that one already. Okay. Anyone know if he's into modular? I've been into, like how you're just asking other people. People ask me this every time. I'm not into it. I don't have any of that. I feel like if I do that, there'll be no coming back. Look at this. Are you gonna do a microcosm video? I did one. It's on my channel. It's one of my better videos. Just go look at my other videos, dude. Hey Ivan, Cyber Attack. Months ago, I took your advice and started tasting this. I remember that. That was the Ask Me Anything when I was in the kitchen, right? I had some gigs in May and discovered I got awfully afraid of speaking in public after Plague World. What do? You know what, dude? First of all, that's awesome that you took the singing lessons. I'm proud of you. That's incredible. I remember you. I'm touched that you like did it and you're going for it and you have gigs. That's great. You got awfully afraid of speaking in public. I get it. I would say you have to just not give up. There's like two ways to do it. One is you just sort of force yourself to do it until it stops being torture, and sometimes that works. Sometimes you can just sort of like get tough and crash through it, but sometimes it's important to note that doesn't work. Like sometimes you do it and you just learn that like I can do it and it's terrible every time, and even though I can do it, it sucks. And that can actually not make it easier because you're just like, man, I have a gig next week and I know I can do it. I also know it's going to be terrible. If you get to that, maybe see if you can do some like little Mickey Mouse gigs. Like, I mean, how many people are coming to your gigs? Like, can you just do a smaller gig? Can you go to like an open mic or something? Can you go to something where it's just like nothing to be scared of? Like go to an open mic where everybody sucks. Can you do that? Or maybe an open mic where it's not even just musicians. You know what I mean? If you could go to an open mic and like go on after like a prop comic or something, then maybe you'll be fine. I don't think it's good to spend a ton of time in places where you're just the best. That'll sort of fuck with your head and it'll make you think that you're doing a lot better than you are. But in this case, it could be useful. So that could be something to try. If it makes you feel better, I get nervous about singing. I don't really get nervous about public speaking. I can do that, but I get nervous about singing before I have shows. So I'm right there with you, man. Look at this. What would you say is your favorite Alexander pedal? Syntax Air version 2. I use that on my record a lot. In fact, I'm even going to say more about it after the record comes out because Syntax Air version 2, I just went to that a bazillion times in the making of my record. I have a video about it. The pro tips, that's like the noise pro tip and the crazy tremolo pro tip. Those two specifically I use all the time. All right. Oh man, a bunch of really good questions here. Kodama's Forest. That's cool that I'm talking to a forest. Hey, dude, I find that having a sense of humor is super helpful for creativity in life, to not take shit too seriously. What are your secrets to happiness and creative well-being? Oh, wow. I'm not happy every second, I mean, people who've seen my Ask Me Anythings before will know what I'm talking about here. I wouldn't say that I have had like just a completely fulfilling creative life. There's a whole bunch of shit that I want and like a bunch of ambition that hasn't been fulfilled. And like every time it gets fulfilled a little bit, I'm like, well, finally, we need more. So, I live with a certain amount of tension all the time. I'm a tense person. I'm a tense person. I remember once this chick I was dating in college like gave me a massage when I was like 20 or something. And she was like, why is your back so tense? You have like an old man's tense back. And I was like, sweetie, it's just, that's who I am. So, that's an example of the type of sexy conversation you can have when you're sort of just go through life with a certain rigidity constantly. But what else can I say about this? Yeah, I mean, I think having a sense of humor is super helpful. I have very mixed feelings about not taking shit too seriously. It depends on what you mean, because part of me thinks that my whole thing is that I take everything extremely serious and I'm a very serious person. And I actually have, it's been the subject of a lot of therapy in my life, is just this sort of desire and aspiration to be regarded as like a serious guy. So there's a version of that I can probably never surrender. But there's also a version of it I hate, I remember I'll tell you about the version I hate. There's some clip of Jared Leto's band playing the Ellen DeGeneres show. This is already funny. If you don't already think this is a funny story, then you're going to think this is a very long and boring story. But if you can agree that a story that begins with Jared Leto's band playing the Ellen DeGeneres show is already funny, then you're in the right place. Okay, there's some clip on YouTube of Jared Leto's band playing the Ellen DeGeneres show, and they play their song, and it just starts with some like super like important like trip hop beat or some sort of like boom, ka, ba boom, ka. It's like that, you know. And then they cut to the stage, and everybody's hearing this sort of like really profound beat with a lot of space in it. But then like Jared Leto's not on the stage, and then it's like, where's Jared Leto? How come he's not on the stage? Where did he go? And then the camera like pans, and he's in the audience, and he's sitting next to people in Ellen's audience. There's just some like woman sitting next to him and a different woman sitting next to him. And they're both like, well, we thought we were in the audience, but then Jared Leto decided to come into the audience, and now he's sitting next to us. And he's not just sitting next to him. He's like got some crazy man beard, and he's wearing some kind of like poncho thing, and he's like rocking back and forth, sitting next. He's like a man of the people, right? And then he starts singing his song over the beat, you know. And once again, the beat is like boom, ka, ba boom, ka. And it's like very clear that Jared Leto like picked the beat because he thought it was like an important beat, and he was like, "Oh, this is gonna be good. I'm gonna put a message over that beat." And then he starts singing over it, and it's like some bullshit about a holy war, or like the holy wars are being waged, and saints and sinners, and it's like it's serious. And this is the version of serious that I really hate. You know what I mean? Where it's just like you think you're a spokesperson for something that's like really messianic and righteous and important, and you think it's like profound that you're sitting next to the people in the audience, and you think that beat is like really slow and amazing. Like that's the kind of seriousness I hate. And I think it's important, you know, don't do that. Don't be that. I mean, that guy's really a millionaire and sold a lot of records. So, you know, I'm sure that guy has a bigger audience than me and my 8.8, you know, thousand YouTube subscribers. So maybe that is what you should be doing. You know, you're taking advice from a guy who's like not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But, you know, I would say that it's like, don't be that vibe, that version of serious. I don't like. Have enough of a sense of humor to not be that. I guess my whole thing is like, I want to be serious, but like, I don't want to do this sort of like profound thing where it's like, you're welcome, everybody. You're welcome that I was able to give you this profound message, you know, profound courage and grace. Like, no. I don't like that. So I hope that was helpful. Would you forgo all these modern gadgets to be alive in a more welcoming time for experimental music, i.e. the 1970s in America? I mean, it's sort of funny that like I would maybe even just do it for Roe v. Wade, to be honest. I mean, like, you get a couple extra things when you go back in time to the 70s from today's world. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. But was the 1970s actually more welcoming to experimental music? Was it? You know, I don't know because I mean, shit's kind of experimental now. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of music that I mean, I wish I had like a more recent, like St. Vincent stuff is like pretty fucking out there and cool. And you know, she's selling records. And I feel like experimental, like, I mean, I wish I had a more recent example, but like the first thing that comes to mind is Single Ladies by Beyonce is like, there's no chords in that song. You know, how fucking experimental is that? The backing track like does not have like a key. I mean, I'm not saying she sings out of key or it's atonal. Like she gives it a key with the melodies, but there's not a lot of fucking hits where the person is singing is like the only real harmonic information like that. You know what it's fucking like? It's like Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles. You know, like that song kind of doesn't have chords and it just says this like cool beat and then the melody sort of gives you everything. But that's rare. And you know, neither of those songs was in the 1970s. So, you know, I'm not sure I believe that like the 70s were more experimental. But like I said, I maybe would go back anyway, just so that we could have basic human rights. Talk about a hook for us. Oh, see, now I'm so far behind that I don't even know what these comments are referring to. Oh, you feel like the music business was run by musicians back then? Was it? I don't know. It was like Mo Austin a musician. You know what I mean? I feel like they were just sort of like moguls. I feel like they were just like moguls, but people bought records, so there was money. You could have a career based on sales instead of a career based on, touring constantly. You could have a career based on both. That's why those people made so much money. It's because they sold records and then they went on tour and then they sold more records. All right. Okay, cool. You know what we're gonna do? Now I'm gonna go back to the questions those people submitted ahead of time. I feel bad. I feel all those poor people who submitted. I asked a million times. I went on all my social media. I e-blasted people. I sent out a fucking email blast asking for questions. I was annoying about it, and so far I haven't used a single one. What is this? My man, I need you to tell me what that melancholy story meant. Well, I don't remember what the story was, but if it's about melancholy and the infinite sadness, that's one of my all-time favorite albums by one of my all-time favorite bands. So I would love to be able to talk about that for any reason, but I do not know what story you're talking about. So help me out. Got it. Okay. All right. Let's go to some of the pre-submits. All right, here we go. Look at this. This is the one I had picked as my first question. What's your go-to pizza? From Sad Boy Guitars. I was thinking I was going to set myself up with a softball, and so I would start to ask me anything with this. And I'm happy to answer it now. My go-to pizza. Well, I like, in terms of the frozen ones you can have at home, I like Paul Newman's frozen pizza, Newman's Own, I guess it's called. Those are great. Love those. I really like a good frozen pizza. I kind of wish I had the stones to say that I think frozen pizza is better than real pizza. I don't think that. But if I did think that, I could then very easily turn that into like a whole part of my like fake New Jersey identity, and how like appearance is reality and like artificial bullshit is beautiful and New Jersey rules. I feel like I'm full of shit because I don't actually think frozen pizza is better than real pizza. That's like the final evolution of me. That's like the Charizard of me. Like right now I'm, I don't know who the Pokemon are, but Charizard is like the final guy, right? So right now I'm like the Pikachu whatever of me. And then someday I'm going to wake up and be like, today's the day. You know what? I think that frozen pizza is better than real pizza. And on that day, I will finally be the complete version of myself. So now you know that. Okay, but in terms of what my real favorite pizza is, this is a no-brainer. It's John's of Bleecker. I live in New York City. There's a pizza place called John's Pizzeria or John's Pizza or John. I love it so much that I don't even know what it's called. If you just Google John's of Bleecker, and if it's on Bleecker Street, New York City, that's the place. That's the best. That's my favorite pizza in the whole world. I like it. It's even better than Newman's Own frozen pizza. I love that place. It's just really good. And also, the first time I ever used my fake ID anywhere, it was there. When me and my idiot friends got our fake IDs, it was like near there. And that's the first place we went, and we got pizza and then ordered beers with our fake IDs. So that's pretty cool. All right. All right, let's do some more of the pre-submitted ones. Okay. Oh yeah, this one I had told this guy we were going to talk about this. May I challenge you to a guitar face off by Kurt Jacobus. The context here is like this guy wants to have a contest with me about whose faces when they play guitar is more out of control. Yes, you can challenge me with this. My guitar face is consistently criticized the most on Reddit. I've noticed this. It's funny to me. Like, there's YouTube comments, there's the discussion of YouTube on the gear page, and then there's Reddit. And like each of those is a different culture. And the culture of Reddit is, or specifically, there's a subreddit called Guitar Pedals, and that Reddit specifically has major problems with my guitar face. Major problems. So here's what you got to do. Upload a video of you playing guitar, and upload it to that Reddit. The Reddit has rules, so don't break the rules. You know what I mean? It's like has to be a pedal thing. So put the pedal in the video and whatever they tell you got to do. I'm not kidding. Like read the rules for that subreddit. So make a video for that subreddit in good faith and put some guitar face in it and see how much bullshit you get. And then look up whatever my most recent video in that subreddit was and see how much bullshit I got and tell me who wins. I had to sort of stop. I got warned for not posting. I posted my stuff too much in that Reddit. So they told me, like, you're not banned, but you have to stop posting your own little things so much and comment on other people's things. So I'm trying to do that now. So you're going to have to go look at whatever my last thing was before I got the warning and see how much bullshit I got for my guitar face. I got a lot, though. I got a lot of shit for my guitar face. And I have to just say it doesn't offend me, but I also don't care. I just do not care at all. I just think, like, you play it. You play it. Make whatever fucking face you got to play. I want to see you play it. And then you can tell me what you think. If someone watches all of your pedal videos, can they become too advanced? No, you'll be fine. You should do it. Watch them all. That's because the Guitar Pedals subreddit is not very rock and roll at all. LOL. Well, I still go. I didn't sort of stop paying attention to them. In fact, listen to this shit. Yesterday, man, I tried to be productive. I tried to do the right thing. Yesterday, they were talking about the new Strymon pedals, and somebody asked if the new El Capistan was true stereo. And I was like, oh, I have it. I could just do a test. I was like, I'll test whether it's true stereo. And I did the first test because you can take stereo or mono input. And the question is, if you put stereo input into the El Capistan and then put, stereo delay in it from the El Capistan, will it just collapse your stereo signal into a mono signal and then put its stereo bullshit on that? So it sort of doesn't matter that you were stereo at the point of entry, or will it preserve your sort of two separate things? And at first I listened to it and I thought it was true stereo. And I went back and was like, hi, I have the pedal. I got it because I got it early because I'm a YouTuber. And I just did a test and it sounds true stereo to me. And everyone's like, oh, that's fucking cool. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm glad I was here. Mm-hmm. And then one guy was like, was the wet signal still true stereo? Like, I get that the dry signal stays stereo as it goes through the El Capistan, but was the El Capistan wet true stereo? And at first I was like, listen, man, here's the test I did. Here's how I did it, blah, 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 blah. I kind of don't want to do another test, but it sounded true stereo to me. And then I was like, did I really listen to whether the wet part was true stereo? Like, that guy might have a point. And then I was like, I did name my whole video thing How to Be Advanced. I did name it that. I didn't call it like How to Be a Lazy Shithead who like does a test and then stops thinking about it. I didn't name my whole fucking video series like How to Be Medium. I didn't name it like how to not give a fuck. That's not what this is about. So then I was like, I gotta do another test. So I did another test and listened more closely. And the wet part is not true stereo. What's happening is like the dry signal goes in and the El Capistan sort of keeps your dry signal, whatever it was. But then when it adds its own wet delay stereo mumbo jumbo, it does sum that part signal and then do its stereo shit to that. So then I had to get back on Reddit and be like, guys, I'm really sorry. And I know I said I didn't want to do another test, but I did another test and I think that other guy was right. And it's not true stereo in the sense that I was saying, and I'm really sorry. So, this is the kind of shit that you can look forward to doing when you become a minor public figure who is, probably working a little bit too hard to win the day over on Reddit after getting a minor warning. That's what your life becomes. Here's a fun one. What is the Blue Mockingbird looking guitar you have? I love it. Thank you. And people ask me this all the time, and I love it too, which is why I answer the question again and again and again. This is a custom guitar I had made for me. It was made for me by a guy named Alex Glasser at a guitar shop called Iron Horse Instruments. It's in Orangeburg, New York. If you're on the East Coast, you should look them up. It's a Mockingbird shape. I have a BC Rich Mockingbird, so we copied that. And then this is Seth Lover, Seymour Duncan humbucker pickup. It's supposed to have a sort of like classic Gibson SG humbucker neck sound, very like creamy and dark. like sort of like a rich, highly processed peanut butter is my association there. This is a Seymour Duncan SSL1. It's just supposed to be like a very classic Strat single coil thing. I think it's the SS1 or SL1 or something like that. And then this is called the 78. It's also Seymour Duncan humbucker. I think it's supposed to be what Eddie Van Halen's lead pickup, bridge pickup was in 1978. I think that's what it is. I'm not super into signature gear and like using stuff that is just what someone else's thing is, like named after them signature gear. But if I'm going to use anybody's, it would probably be Eddie Van Halen's. The other pickups I've always wanted to get are whatever the pickups are in Nile Rodgers' Hitmaker reissue. I tried to find out what those pickups were because the guitar is like, $4,000. I was like, I'd really love to just buy the pickups, but I could never get anyone to tell me. But the last thing I did was that this humbucker here, the Eddie Van Halen thing, if you pull this up, you can make it series instead of parallel. So instead of going through both pickups at the same time, it goes through one and then it goes through the other. And sometimes that can give it a little bit more of like a single coil quack thing, which I use that a lot, actually. I pulled the knob up a lot. I always forget whether a humbucker is typically parallel, I think. I think most humbuckers are parallel. And when I pull the knob up, I'm changing it to be series. Somebody tell me if I have that backwards. But I tend to use the series version a lot. Anyway, that's what that guitar is. I mean, we could talk about it more, but I've talked about it on other things. Okay, cool. You talk like the boys from Typo Negative, they Hometown Heroes. I don't know a ton about them. Are they from New Jersey? Because that's where I'm from. That's what my accent is. Here's what I know about Typo Negative. And I don't even know if I'm thinking the right thing. Wasn't the guy in Typo Negative, didn't he like pose in Playgirl magazine? And doesn't he look like sort of like an undead Fabio? Like if Fabio was like a zombie, isn't that the Typo Negative guy? Tell me if that's right. That's because if that's right, I'm glad that I got it right, but that's all I know about Typo Negative. That and the fact that he posed in Playgirl. I would be cool with that. I'd be cool with having the same voice as a dead guy who posed in a porno mag. That would be totally fine with me. All right. I'm looking forward to hearing about that. All right. Let's go back to the pre-submitteds. All right, let's go. Here we go. Oh, here's a fun one. Oh shit. Oh, I got it right. Yeah, he did. Pete. That's right. That was his name. That was hilarious. Rest in peace. And I vaguely remember that he died too. Well, so now he's really a dead guy. Well, we remember you fondly, Pete, dead Pete from Typo Negative. We wish you the best. All right. How do you fight the urge to buy more gear from too many hobbies? Well, I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, but I haven't really bought gear in a couple years because I'm given gear for free now. So the way I fight it is if I want something, I just see if I can get it. And if I can't get it, then I just wait. Like there's a bunch of synthesizer shit that I want and I'm just not going to buy because I'm keep thinking like maybe I'll just wait longer. They'll give it to me. I'm not saying I can get whatever I want, but I have more than I need now. So, and that, to be honest, this is part of why I don't really say in my video, like, is it worth it to get this pedal? Is it worth it to buy this pedal? Is it a good value for what it costs? I wouldn't know because I didn't pay what it costs, so that's kind of why I don't really like render those judgments in my videos. Apart from that, one way to fight it is just to think like, I'm sure you could be getting more out of the gear you already have. I'm sure I could be getting more out of the gear I already have. Every time I've ever been sent a pedal, so I'll be honest, like sometimes in the first 20 minutes, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And 20 minutes is about as long as I ever used to get in a guitar store. Like if I went to 30th Street Guitars, which is my favorite guitar store in the city, and they let me go in the loud room and I bring a pedal in, I feel like 20 minutes is like that's a long time to be in the loud room, especially if there's like other people in the store. If there were other people in the store, I wouldn't take 20 minutes. But whatever. That you get like 10 to 20 minutes in the loud room at a guitar store, right? If there's no line. And so I've been sent pedals where like in that amount of time, I kind of don't know what I'm gonna do. But if I have to make a fucking YouTube video about it, well, I have to work a little bit harder. So then I end up just sort of forcing myself to listen to more of what the pedal can do and try to get a little more creative. And I sort of have this constraint that forces me to dig a little deeper. And a lot of times, I think most of the videos I've made, by the time I made the video, there was at least one pro tip where I was like, I'm going to keep this pedal just because of that one pro tip. That one, I mean, sometimes it's more than one pro tip, but usually at least one pro tip I think I'm going to use on a record somewhere. And so I keep the pedal for that. So I guess my point is that, like, if you just stop buying gear and you say from now on, all we can do is use the pedals we already have, you'll have cool stuff. You'll make new discoveries. So that's how you should fight it. Oh yeah, look at this question. This is like, you can tell the questions from people who have done these, who have seen my Ask Me Anythings before, and people who haven't. Because the people who have seen them before are like, next time, Ivan, next time we're gonna kill you. And I'm okay with that. I like the escalation. You know what I mean? I like having it be an ongoing game of brinksmanship and aggression. So look at this question, which is a crucial part of that ongoing war. Have you ever sacrificed love for your music? From Sad Boy Guitars. I mean, what the fuck? Why would you even want to know that? Like how is that going to serve you at all to know? Have you ever sacrificed love for your music? Also, I feel like we sort of know where your username came from now. Sad Boy Guitars. I feel like we know at last. At last we know why that's your name. I think the answer is no. I don't think I've ever like sacrificed love for your music. I mean, for one thing, if I did do that, like, what did I get for the sacrifice? Like, what do I have to show for it? You see what I'm saying? It's not like I'm opening for the fucking Rolling Stones. You see, like where's the fucking shelf of Grammys if I made a sacrifice for my music, and then what was it for? But I just don't think I have done that. I don't know. We could ask some of my ex-girlfriends what they think. Lots of guitarists getting into an iPad iOS rig using an interface. Oh, geez. Look at the world we live in. I'm sorry. I don't know why that was so depressing to me. There's just something about having to say those words. Lots of guitarists getting into an iPad iOS rig using an interface. Yeah, they're using an interface, aren't they? How do you feel about digital effects amp mod versus analog? I'm pro, even though I just bet you didn't think I was going to say that based on the way I talk shit about the question. But I think amp modeling is a godsend. I don't want to have to set microphones. That's fucking hard. That's so hard to set microphones, and it has to be loud. I live in an apartment. I use amp modelers all day long. I use this in like every pedal video you've ever seen. I was using this amp modeler. Now, when I go to a studio and we can like put an amp on 10 and shut the door and record it, I do think like, oh yeah, it does sound good. Yeah, that would be cool. I wonder if I could go home and put an amp on 10 in my house. And the answer is no. But, I got to make a YouTube video again and again and again. So I think amp modelers are great and they sound good. And, I do like being able to get, I mean, I always record stereo when I'm using an amp modeler. Even if the amp modeler's mono, I'll just run it into like some stereo Strymon pedal. I'll put it into the Deco and get a little bit of stereo from that, or I'll put it into the Night Sky and get a little stereo from that. And that's how I work, because I'm just used to hearing my guitar should be stereo now. And even now, when I go to the studio and I hear the amp on 10, I'm like, oh, that does sound better. It's still weird to me that it's like a mono thing. And like, if you want to make it, they turn it to stereo later and they put some like reverbs on it later. I'm always like, oh, it is mono though. So I like amp modelers. And also I'll say this. I feel like I probably said this before. Digital versus analog does not matter. It does not matter. I don't think you can hear a difference at this point. I really don't. I don't believe anyone can hear a difference at the level of digital to analog conversion that's happening. I mean, I'm sure people think they can hear a difference, but I really don't believe that. I mean, sometimes people say things like digital pedals sound have like a precision or a sheen or a brightness or whatever. That could all be true, but I don't believe that that's happening as a result of the analog to digital conversion. I don't think you're hearing that at all. I mean, anyone who thinks they can hear that, just set up get real, get fucking serious. Like, set up a double blind test and test yourself. And if you're really fucking good at it, then like make a little YouTube video of your double blind test where you nailed it. And then invite people to try to fool you, and invite your followers to send in, different audio files and see if you can identify which ones are digital without knowing, and do a double blind challenge with your fucking internet followers and win that. If I'll put it this way, this is like ESP and shit like that. If you can really, 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 really hear the difference between digital and analog, like, you should be a famous person. You could win Gear Internet if you can really do that. Like, all you got to do is like make a video where like, hey asshole, I can hear the difference. If you do an analog to digital conversion, I can hear it. And send me the files where it's just the analog one, and then send me the files where it's like converted to full bandwidth digital, and I'll tell you which is which. And then if you can get that right like 20 times in a row with people on the internet telling you they can do it, like, you will get attention. Your numbers will go up. You can become a fucking YouTuber person on the strength of this. Maybe you can even get some pedal companies to say some free gear, right? Like, if you can really hear a difference, you should be a big deal. So maybe people who can hear a difference are hearing this, and then they're going to do that, and I'll have to eat my words. But until that day comes, I don't believe you can hear a difference. And I definitely don't. Anyone on a forum is like, well, I can hear a difference. I do not believe that. Oh yeah, see, look at what this person is saying. They are getting pretty close to the real thing, aren't they? Dude, they're not getting pretty close. They're indistinguishable. It's indistinguishable. I mean, there was a time when you could hear a difference. Like, if I'm talking about current gear. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like, today's standards of digital to analog conversion. I know in the beginning you could hear a difference, and then maybe there was a time when you couldn't hear a difference, but there was still a little bit of latency, but they fixed that too. What I'm talking about is like high-end gear. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. Anyway, let's keep going to some of the pre-submitted questions. Oh, this was a fun one I got from Instagram. All right. What riff makes you want to punch a hole in the wall? From J-Mac Bass. So I had a follow-up to this. The follow-up was, do you mean like what music makes me like so amped up and excited that I like sort of can't control myself and just like punch a hole in the wall, but it's like kind of in a good way, kind of? Or do you mean like what music do I hate so much? Did I like hate the music? Did I am so mad at the music that I punch a hole in the wall? And the person was like, answer both. That was a private correspondence I had with J-Mac Bass on Instagram. So I'm going to try to answer both. What the first one is like kind of the good one. I was on the cross country team in high school, and I used to listen to music on the bus ride to races. And that was like a big part of my like sports psychology, and like a big part of my preparation for these races was listening to music in the bus. And like the cross country program in my high school was kind of intense because they were like, the only way to win a race is to push yourself as hard as you possibly fucking can. You know, like you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That was like basically the entire training program at Leonia High School when I was on the varsity cross country team. It was just like, you know, the coach, it's like sometimes seniors would like puke after they crossed the finish line, and like the coaches couldn't really say that like that was good, but you could tell that it was like a little bit cool. They're like, wow, that guy really pushed himself hard. I'm not saying this is like super hip to teach children to compete this way. I'm not defending it, and it did have a huge lasting impact on me for the rest of my life. You know, some people would maybe say that I was damaged by it, but I kind of think it was cool though. So anyway, the whole point was that it was like impossible to not get stressed before a cross country race. Like the whole point was like, if you just sort of go out there and run and have fun with it and then come back and like, oh, that felt good. Like that means you didn't compete hard enough. Maybe if you come in first place and that's how you feel, it's okay because we won. But the only way to really run a race is to just like go to the brink of death, you know? And part of it was also like, it's not about being fast. Like that's not what this is. It's like a guts thing. It's like a pure endurance thing. So every race, I was like, even if I do, the only way to do well is to sort of just be like a dead man at the end. So you know that was stressful. So I would like cope. I would like self-medicate by listening to music. Really, it was really intense. And the two bands that really, really, really sort of got me through it the most were AC/DC and Metallica. You know, two of the biggest rock bands of all time. Not surprising, probably, but that's the kind of music I think of when it's like punching a hole in the wall. You know, I would listen to For Whom the Bell Tolls a lot. That was a big race song for me. I would listen to For Whom the Bell Tolls. And I would listen to For Those About to Rock, especially the end of For Those About to Rock, when they play like every chord in the progression, but they like hold it and like just beat the shit out of every chord. You know, it's like B, A, G, D over F sharp. It's like the end of that song is really long, and it's just them like doing every chord. I used to just listen to the end part of that, where it's like beating the shit out of every chord, because that to me is what the end of a race felt like. So that is the music to me. That's the music I think about for like punching a hole in the wall in the good way. Okay, and then in terms of music that I hate so much that it makes me want to punch a hole in the wall. You know, it's always harder for me to remember the stuff that I hate. I mean, you know, this is sort of dated now. I don't know if it's really even a thing anymore. I feel like people made fun of it a lot and then it went away. But like the dork stomp music, you know, like music that's for when like white people get married in the woods, and like then there's the dance portion of the getting married in the woods, and it's like the Lumineers or whatever, like music where it's like a bunch of people like stomp and it's like, hey, and then like that's the chorus, you know. I hate that. That to me, that's like the same as Jared Leto on the Ellen Show. It's like a little bit different. It's like hippies instead of like whatever Jared Leto is. But I still basically hate that. What else do I hate? I can never remember. Yeah, all right. Sorry that I don't have more to say about that. Kevin Cribben, love your channel. Thanks, man. Did you ever get a chance to check out the band Paper Mice? No. A few people recommend them in the last Q&A. Oh, they did? Oh, man, I had no awareness of that. I'm sorry. Sorry for missing these questions. I know I keep saying that the live chat thing is really important to me. I feel terrible when I don't know things like this. I'm sorry for disappointing you. Okay. Well, anyway, what's it called? Paper Mice. I have no awareness of them at all. I guess I have to look them up. Oh, look at this. Favorite drugs. I don't do drugs. I don't do drugs. I don't have a problem with drugs. I've been high. I don't get high anymore. I'm totally in favor of like absolutely decriminalizing probably all drugs. I think the war on drugs is insane and terrible and wrong, and is also like absolutely connected to racism, and is just all wrong from the get-go. But I myself just don't do drugs anymore. Dude, it's a little weird because I know that like drugs is like the pedal board of the mind. Like I get it, You know what I mean? Like, what if there was some way to put like pedals in your consciousness? Like, what if you could run your consciousness through like the mood? Or like, what if you could like take a fucking wah-wah pedal to your thoughts? Like, that's literally what drugs are. So I get it. You know, I'm very used to people thinking I'm like a narc or that I'm like a piece of shit, or people. No one thinks I'm a piece of shit, but I am very much aware that like if you stop doing drugs, then people will get self-conscious around you when they find that out, and I'm always sad about that. I really, there's no judgment here. I just don't do it anymore. It's if I just decided there's like too many presets saved up here, and I kind of don't. I need, from here on out, I need a certain kind of like sobriety and like a certain sober thing in my mind in order to be able to do the rest of the shit that I'm trying to do. So I don't have favorite drugs. I'm sorry, but I wish you the best. I hope you can do all the drugs you could ever want to do and that it goes well for you. Oh, I already clicked on that one. Sorry. See, look at this, right? Weed is the flanger, alcohol is the distortion. Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that. Alcohol is the distortion. No, to me, alcohol is the one that just sort of makes you like funnier and louder and happier. I guess that's what distortion does. I guess, but yeah, I don't know. What's the one that just sort of like makes you like louder and funnier? That's what alcohol is to me. I guess you're right. I guess that is the distortion. All right. Let's go back to some of the other questions. Oh, here's one. Favorite exotic scale currently? I like what a dorky question that is. You know what I mean? It's like, we all know that you have like a different favorite exotic scale every couple of weeks. So what's the current one? I like the idea that this person is like, they don't want to know my favorite exotic scale ever. They want to know what it is now. I don't know, something about that's charming. From Silky B. You know, I don't really have one though. I'm sorry. I don't really have a current favorite exotic scale. I don't even think I'm really using favorite exotic scales. It's more like I'll just try to come up with cool chords and a cool progression, and then I just kind of follow the chords or whatever. But I don't end up really using nutty scales that much. There was a time when I would have had an answer for this. There was a time, I remember once, I used to be in a band called Sweet Fix, and we wrote a song called Bad For You, which you could find. It's like on Bandcamp and stuff. Sweet Fix is the name of the band. Bad For You is the name of the song. And it was like, it was sort of a riff song. Like it had a very sort of like 80s, like hard rock riff energy, you know? So I was like, this solo has to be like a pretty shred solo. Now I think that at every solo, you know, I really don't believe in taking a guitar solo unless you're like going to try to kill somebody with it. But for this one in particular, I was like, it can't just be that. It has to be that like 80s style. But I wanted to do something, even within that, I wanted to do something that was kind of nutty. And I wanted there to be like a cool scale. I didn't just want to do like Zakk Wylde fast pentatonic shit. I like wanted there to be like a Randy Rhoads thing, like the harmonic surprise. And so the exotic scale, the most exotic scale I thought I could do something with at that time was Hungarian minor. You guys know about this? It's like harmonic minor, but it has a raised fourth. So it's like root. We're gonna go through it. It's root, major second, minor third, perfect fourth. No, I fucked it up. Root, major, I can't. I love that the Ask Me Anything is just gonna grind to a fucking halt right now because I have to go through the steps of this scale to answer this question. I feel like this is like algorithm suicide, but we gotta do it. The Silky B deserves to have this question answered, or her question answered. Right. Okay. So how does this fucking scale go? Hungarian minor, root, major second, minor third, augmented fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, major seventh. So it's like harmonic minor, but there's a augmented fourth and a perfect fifth and a minor sixth. And if you're still with me, you might realize that that's like three chromatic notes in a row. So it's weird. It's like harmonic minor, but there's this like chromatic passage in the middle of it. Oh, and Miserlou by Dick Dale. uses that scale, but it doesn't. It's like the fuck, what is it? It's like it starts on the second degree of it. I think if you start that scale from the second note, it's that's Miserlou by Dick Dale. One of the degrees of that scale is what Miserlou is. Anyway, and Randy Rhoads uses that scale in the solo for Diary of a Madman. That's where I got it. So anyway, I used that scale in the solo for the song Bad for You, which you could look up in here. And I thought it was cool that I did that. And I was proud of myself for putting in this thing that my guitar teacher showed me that no one I'd ever met knew about. I lived in a small town. That's the only reason. I used the scale in the song, and the solo was cool. And then the band broke up, and nobody ever heard the song again, ever, except maybe today. That's that answer. See, this is what I love. Look at this shit. Hey, Wrapped in Gray, I've seen you in one of these. Nice to see you. That's hysterical that we're like a club and you guys know each other. That's the closest I've ever come to being like Jared Leto on the Ellen DeGeneres show, where I'm like, yes, community. You know what I mean? Like, I too am a man of the people. Bringing people together is my gift to you. You guys gotta fucking pounce on me as soon as I start to be like that. If I ever really start to do that shit, if I ever start to say like, oh, I like that you guys are starting to remember each other in the comments, don't forget that community is my real gift. And what I'm really here to do is to bring people together, because I am your God. As soon as you ever detect any step in that direction from me, you got to cancel me. All right. If you get the pitchforks, call Kamala Harris, tell them that I got to go, and then just take me out with extreme prejudice. All right. It's the only way. It's the only way. Nobody who ever gets to that deserves to get to that. All right. What else we got? Looking for one of my other earlier questions, the pre-submitted ones. Oh yeah, this one. This was a great one. Yeah, see, look at this. This is why you guys are great. Hey, Lucas, happy to be contributing to Ivan's How to Be Advanced at Life cult. Yeah, see, this is the thing. It's like, that's funny, but don't ever let it become a real cult, okay? Like, we can never let that happen. If this shit goes well, and I get like 200,000 followers or whatever, even then, I want you to show up to the same and be like, you used to be cool, man. You used to be cool. You used to get warnings from Reddit. You used to say fuck. You used to tell us like not to worship anybody. What happened to that guy? That's what you got to do that if we ever get there, okay? Do whatever it takes. I look at this question from Michael. You're stranded in a Ross Dress for Less. I like that that's part of this. And I especially like the Ross Dress for Less sign and logo, which has like not been updated in 30 years. Like that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Google image search Ross Dress for Less. It's like this insane old school logo from like 1980. It's like dark blue with this like old school font. It's like just like no designer who's alive today would ever churn out a logo like that. It's just like so old school. I see that and it reminds me of like my earliest memories of being a child and like going to the clothing store with my mom and like what shit looked like in that world. I'm not that old though. So this is from when I was like, an infant. You're stranded in a Ross Dress for Less and you're out of food. Who do you eat first, Eric Clapton or Van Morrison? What are they wearing? There's like two ways to come at this, right? One is like, who do I hate more? So who would I kill first? But then the other is like, I have to eat them also. And so who would be less disgusting to eat? And I'm assuming, it's very unpleasant to think about this, but I'm assuming Eric Clapton would be more disgusting to eat because he's like sort of like a wrinkly old man. Whereas like Van Morrison is still sort of like, he's also gross, but he's like more of a plump old man. And I feel like you could maybe get a sort of a soft underbelly somewhere if you had to eat Van Morrison. I can't believe I'm saying this. This is just appalling. But you know what I mean? I feel like it's like you could get sort of like, sort of a fatty piece of like disgusting veal if you had to from eating Van Morrison. But if you ate Eric Clapton, the whole thing would just sort of be like the part of the like chicken wing that's just the bone. You know what I mean? It's like, if you ever like finish a chicken wing and you're like, I think there's one more bite here, and then you bite it and it's just like the elbow bone part of it, and you're like, oh, never mind. I feel like that's every bite of Eric Clapton. You know what I mean? That's how I'm coming down on this. So I would kill Van Morrison first and then eat him. That would be grotesque. And I guess I also hate Van Morrison more. I don't know. Do I hate either of them? I guess I don't even hate them. I mean, I would, I'm not a fan, but I like Layla. I think Layla's a good song. I think Layla's undeniably a good song. So Eric Clapton has that. I like that more than any Van Morrison song. They use Van Morrison on The Sopranos, and when that happens, I'm not like, oh no, I don't give it. It works. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. I get it. And Martin Scorsese used Layla more than once, and every time he does, I'm like, oh yeah, good call. But it would be wrong to say that I'm a fan of either of these guys. I like classic rock, but they're just like too classic rock. And politically, there's issues there too. We don't even have to get into that, but they don't. I would say they have not become more attractive recently. Look at this. Don't worry, Ivan. We will still call you your band name and roast you when you get back. Music to my ears, Lucas. Music to my ears. All right. Okay, let's go back to some more pre-submits here. Okay, where's another? Oh, some of these I already asked. I have to remember to delete them as I do that. All right. Well, here's another good one. Oh yeah, this was another one from Michael. This is a cool one. Who are 5 musicians that have had big influence on you that don't play guitar? It might be hard for me to think of 5 without having to just like sit here for a minute, but Stevie Wonder comes to mind instantly. I had an Ask Me Anything where I talked about Stevie Wonder almost the whole time. I don't remember which one that was. That's the one where the thumbnail says, "Is it cool to rip off artists?" Whatever Ask Me Anything that was, I basically it's an entire Ask Me Anything about Stevie Wonder. I should just put his name in the fucking thumbnail because he's famous. Stevie Wonder has a huge influence on me. If you want to hear me talk about it, go find that Ask Me Anything. That guy can play a bazillion instruments, but he's not a guitar player that I'm aware of. So he, from a young age, Stevie Wonder is like a true musical hero of mine. I've talked about him before, but the gist of it is just that he writes really cool, like attractive, beautiful music that's like fun to listen to, and it's like catchy and just sort of like is what you want when you're listening to it. You're just like, yeah, that make more music like that. It sounds good, and that it's also just very sophisticated, cool chords, cool syncopations. The melodies are crazy. That it's very easy to get into this thing where you can either make something that's sort of like attractive, but you have to dumb it down, or you can make something that's sort of intricate and cool, but people won't get it. I don't like it anytime people separate those things. I think separating those things is sort of taking the easy way out. And I know why people do it, but I'm saying don't do it. Don't do it. Stevie Wonder didn't do it. He was like, I'm just going to be both of those things at the same time. Watch me. So I feel like that's what we should all be aspiring to. Stevie Wonder, David Lee Roth, huge influence on me. Huge influence on me. David Lee Roth as a vocalist, the way he did, the way he sort of turned his like influences and abilities outside of music and then put that into his identity and then had that come into the music is a huge influence on me, especially because like as a singer, I have some limitations, but the idea that you can sort of skate around your limitations, the force of your personality is to me is a David Lee Roth thing. I mean, I love every member of Van Halen, Alex Van Halen, Michael Anthony, Eddie Van Halen, David Lee Roth. I worship all of them. I love everything they ever did on the first 6 albums. There's not a song on the first 6 albums that I don't love. There's not a measure of a song in the first 6 Van Halen albums that I don't think is basically perfect. I mean, I hate to sort of go this far, but at this point, this is really how I feel. Like on a measure to measure basis, I can't really find fault with like a single measure of music in the first 6 Van Halen albums. So know that about me. You use that to sort of, correct for whatever else is about to come out of my mouth. I've always kind of felt like Eddie Van Halen was kind of a stone cold genius. I mean, he practiced a lot and he worked extremely hard and he practiced nonstop. He just, in terms of the hours on the guitar, even if he wasn't a genius, he spent so much time practicing that he would have been good, even if he wasn't gifted. But my hunch is that he was also extremely gifted. There was a prodigiousness to him. He started with a lot and then he practiced a lot. For instance, Alex was his older brother and their dad was also a musician, a professional musician. And both of them, his father and his older brother, sort of sensed that like he was the special one, So that's part of what makes me think he was kind of just a genius. I think of David Lee Roth as like a non-genius who was sort of this like hardworking tramp who like did great work and was brilliant, but more sort of on like the force of his tenacity. And that's attractive to me too. I mean, he was also rich, like hardworking tramp is, I don't know, maybe that's a weird way to put it. Cause he was rich, but like David Lee Roth is like what a sort of like, to me is like how you can be a genius without being a genius. Like what the sort of road looks like if you're a non-virtuoso. And as a singer, I feel like that it's not going to really be helpful for me to like hope that I might be starting with the equipment that Eddie Van Halen is starting with, I mean, the analogy sort of breaks down because I'm talking about myself as a singer, but I'm comparing myself to Eddie Van Halen. But the point is that like, David Lee Roth to me is this guy who sort of proves that like singing is so physical and so personal and like the body is the instrument that like the way to really do that it's like you're not just practicing your vocal technique, you're practicing your whole identity. And I'm very attracted to that. Also, I like his book. He wrote a book, Crazy from the Heat, his autobiography. I've read that book literally like 9 times. So you wanted 5 and I'm on 2, right? Seeing it's going to take a while. Okay, here's a different one. Wendy Carlos. You guys know about Wendy Carlos? She is a composer who was like an early pioneer of synthesizers. She also did the soundtrack for A Clockwork Orange and The Shining. When I was in college, I wanted to take the cool recording studio class. There was a recording studio at my school, and you could only use it if you were in this class. And one of the requirements for the class was a course called Computers and Music. You had to take Computers and Music in order to be able to take the recording studio class. Now, if you know me now, you probably think like, oh, Computers and Music, that sounds right up your alley. But I didn't want to take that class because that class was like a big part of like, it was very much into experimental weirdness. Not just the 70s, bro. Remember that guy who said that music like was most experimental in the 70s? This class started way before the 70s and was like, we had to listen to all this historical shit. It was like the first time anyone ever used a tape recorder and like the first time anyone ever used like an oscillator. And I would listen to this shit and be like, this is so dumb. I was like 20 years old. I was like, anything that does not on some level remind me of like the Sopranos or Van Halen is a waste of time. I was like, I only want everything to be Van Halen or like shit about New Jersey gangsters. Those are the only things I care about. Anything that's not that is stupid. And then I would go to this class and they'd be like, all right, now we're going to play sort of a chance operation thing composed by John Cage. And I was just like, this is so dumb. And then at one point they taught us about Wendy Carlos, who used early synthesizers to make an album of Bach music. It's called Switched on Bach. It was sort of like a weird cult hit. You might have heard about it. This is in the late 60s. She made this record where she just played Bach on synthesizers and she performed it all herself. And it like legitimized electronic music because she was using Bach, who was like highbrow and was like a legitimate classical composer. And she was using this new thing that people didn't know if it was cool or not to play that music. And so it sort of legitimized it. Now, you shouldn't have to legitimize something that way. It should be enough to just be different and innovative and cool. You shouldn't have to go then prove you can play Bach with it. But, we live in a world of many problems. So she did that, and then they played some of that record. And it was like the first time I heard somebody shredding in the whole class, because she could really play. She was like playing fast, crazy Bach shit on synthesizers, and it sounded crazy. It was like these crazy synthesizers playing fast classical shit. It was like a Sega Genesis thing. And I was like, oh, who's that? Who is that? She's cool. She can shred. It was like, this is the first thing I've heard that sounds like Eruption. So I was like, more of that. So I started listening. I sort of took her seriously. And then she made some crazy experimental music, though. She didn't just shred all day long. She did weird shit. And she even made a record that was just non-equal temperament tuning systems. Now we're getting advanced, boys and girls. She made a record. It's out of print. You should try to find it. It'll be expensive, though. It's called Beauty and the Beast. And the whole record is just not equal temperament, other tuning systems. And then she was like, I might be losing some of you here, but it's just fucking cool. So just stick with me if you can. She was like, wouldn't it be cool if you could have everything not be an equal temperament? You could use perfect just intonation so that like the intervals to make up an octave were like more beautiful and perfect, but you could also then switch to any key at any time and have it still be perfect. That's actually it was thought to be impossible for a long time. She was like, what if you could just have both things? And then she was like, oh, wait. You can. There is a way to have both things. All you have to do is split the octave into 144 notes. We're used to thinking of an octave as being 12 notes. She was like, no. Octave is going to be 144 notes now. And then all you have to do is you have 12 versions of every note. There's 12 A's and 12 A sharps and 12 B's and 12 C's and 12 C sharps. You got 12 of each. And then anytime you want to play any note, you can just choose to have it be the most perfect version of that note's intonation for whatever key you're in at the time. And then she invented that scale and then wrote songs in that scale. So at this point, I was like, okay, this chick's advanced, number one. Number two, Clockwork Orange soundtrack is fucking cool too. Number three, Shining soundtrack is pretty cool too. 144 notes in an octave is fucking cool. I was like, all right. Some of this experimental weird shit is kind of cool. And then I sort of gave another chance to like, Edgar Varese and like John Cage and Karl-Heinz Stockhausen and what's her name, Pauline Oliveros, and like all the other like experimental weirdos who I thought couldn't shred. Cause Wendy Carlos was like sort of kind of in their club. I listened to them too, and then I was like, this is cool now. I get it. I'm sorry I said that shit before about how they can't shred. I get it now. They're cool. I like them too. And then I grew up to be a person who goes to noise concerts. And it's like, you should be banging that guitar with a screwdriver instead of a steel mesh. Screwdriver sounds better. I became that person, and now I do make these pedal videos, and every time I get a chance, I talk about how noise is good. So Wendy Carlos was hugely important for me for that reason. All right. Dude, I have to keep going though. I need two more of these non-guitarist musicians. Freddie Mercury. See, I'm gonna do it though. I can never allow myself to like not answer the full question or to be like a wuss. Like if you ask for 5 and I only give 3, I can never permit myself to do that. Because then I'm feeling like, well, people would say I'm not so serious, and that seriously turns my blood to ice. The thought of people being like, well, I mean, it's kind of funny. Some of those videos are cool. He's like funny and stuff. I don't know if he's that serious though. When I think about shit like that, it's seriously like it really turns my blood to ice. So because of reasons like that, I have to give you 5 because you asked for 5, and I put your question on the screen, and there's no turning back. You can never turn back. You can never go back on anything you ever said. So I need 2 more. Okay, that's fine. This is going well. This is like just a very healthy, like sane exercise and sanity and well-adjustedness. Okay, Freddie Mercury comes to mind. I love Queen. I mean, Brian May is one of my favorite guitar players of all time. But, even without him, Freddie Mercury, I kind of like the Queen songs where it's almost like the band was like a piano trio. I feel bad because Brian May fucking rules. He's like a top 10 guitar player for me. That guy, every time he ever played anything, it was fucking cool. Every Queen solo ever is just fucking cool. That's another band where like I couldn't really find fault with anything they ever did. Anytime Brian May ever played anything on the guitar, it sounded like he was shredding, even if he wasn't shredding. Like even if he just, it's like there are all those times in like a song like Killer Queen or whatever, where he just comes in and does like a blip, it just plays one note, and you're like, that was how you should have done that. That was the right little blip. Like he just nailed it. You know what I mean? He just got it right. And yet the songs where he's like not even playing, I kind of like those songs too, you know, where it's like the songs where it's just piano based drums. That's like a genre of Queen that I also kind of like. The part of Bohemian Rhapsody before he comes in, where it's just a piano song, I kind of love that part. Or Don't Stop Me Now. I know Don't Stop Me Now has a guitar solo. Obviously, it fucking rules. But the rest of that song has no guitar, and it's like just kind of cool. Or Somebody to Love. Like there's not a ton of guitar happening in Somebody to Love outside of the solo. I sort of like that. So what I'm building to here is that I actually like Freddie Mercury as a piano player. I like his time. The chords that he wrote were insane and beautiful. There's like honestly Stevie Wonder level harmonic sophistication in the chords progressions Freddie Mercury could put in the songs he wrote. As much as I love Brian May, Freddie Mercury was my favorite songwriter in that band. The songs he wrote were just incredible. So catchy. The melodies were dynamite, and then the chords under the melodies were just fucking bonkers. So I like the way he played piano. I like his time. He never really even took solos or anything, but he could play cool shit. The beginning of Death on Two Legs is like piano shredding. If you don't know that song, listen to the song Death on Two Legs by Queen, because it begins with like Freddie Mercury shredding on piano. And then, I haven't even mentioned the voice yet, but what are you going to do? The voice is just, you can't hear that voice and not be moved by it. So that's number 4. And man, where else we got to go? I need one more non-guitarist musician who had a big impact on me. It's got to be another singer, I guess. I don't know. Oh, well, I don't know. Can I say Trent Reznor? I mean, he plays guitar kind of, but I feel like he could make a record where he doesn't play guitar, and I would love that record. I mean, maybe he did do that. Does he play guitar on the Social Network soundtrack? There might not be any guitar on that. I know he plays guitar, so maybe it doesn't count, but him not playing guitar, Trent Reznor, that guy's approach to sound, I think should be obvious how much that affected me. So that's number 5. I love shit like this. I love when people come at me with names like these names. Any love for Jan Hammer, Manfred Mann, or Keith Emerson? Only one of them. Only one of those 3 guys means anything to me. You want to guess who it is? I'll give you a second. Type it in now. Even if there's a lag, I'll catch it later. Only one of these 3 people means anything to me, and it is Jan Hammer. Jan Hammer is the only one I like, because it's really on the strength of his Jeff Beck collaborations, which to me is sort of jazz fusion, and the other guys are progressive rock. And I just really don't like progressive rock that much. I'm sorry. I'm sure there is some progressive rock that I like. I like Pink Floyd, but anytime he got it, or this person got it. This person got it. Yiggity yeah. I'm proud of you, man. Yiggity yo. Yiggity yo, you nailed it. Jan Ham, you knew. Very good. Yeah, anytime the music is like, well, in this part, we actually might be interested to know we went to 11/8. I don't give a shit. There's a very sort of like, oh, look at what they did there thing that I don't want to look at it. I don't. I want to hear it and have it sound good, and then I'll look at it later. But I don't. First, I just want it to go in my head and sound cool. Like, I don't really like Frank Zappa either. I'm sorry. I like people who were in Frank Zappa's band. I like Vinny Colaiuta. That guy's like, one of the coolest drummers ever. I like George Duke. I even like Steve Vai. We're talking about the David Lee Roth solo albums. And I like Dweezil Zappa. I think Dweezil Zappa plays Eruption better than anyone I've ever heard who's not Eddie Van Halen. And it's not because he's even trying to imitate Eddie Van Halen. It's just because he sort of is able to he commits to every phrase of Eruption as a phrase rather than as a literal imitation of notes in a certain order. Like it's hard to play Eruption because it's hard, but it's also hard because there's like rhythmic weirdness in Eruption. Like, there's like, issues where the time feel is a little bizarre. And Eddie Van Halen makes it sound right because he was speaking those phrases and it meant something to him. But it's actually kind of hard to phrase some of those things and have it sound intentional, as opposed to just, well, Eddie Van Halen played these notes in this order, so now I must play those notes in this order. And I feel like Dweezil Zappa is one of the few people, other people can do it too, he's not the only one, but Dweezil Zappa is the only person I can think of right now off the top of my head who, when he plays Eruption, he plays it accurately. It's not that he changes it, but he plays it with this sense that, like, what I'm doing here is like playing a piece of music that is supposed to express certain musical ideas, and so I'm going to express them on a phrase-to-phrase basis rather than it's this notes in this order. So why am I talking about Dweezil Zappa? Oh, yeah, right. It's because I just don't like music where it's like, oh, look at the choices. Look at those choices. I don't want to think about the choices. I just want it to sound good. And then later I'm going to get hung up on why it sounds so fucking cool, and I'll figure it out. And then I'll be like, oh, that's cool that they did that. But I get to that later. And the first thing I want to have happen is I just want to sound fucking cool. And we'll talk about it later. And I feel like a lot of progressive rock and the Manfred Manns of the world and the Keith Emersons of the world, they're just like not operating on that level. Jan Hammer, I think, can. Especially the favorite shit Jan Hammer ever did that I've heard is Wired by Jeff Beck. The way he plays on that album, he plays like Jeff Beck does. There's a sort of awesome attitude that's like kind of hostile and is sort of like edgy and like guitar player trying to, like, you know, kill you thing that's great. And yet there's also this like good swing feel, very adventurous, kind of this like jazzy freedom that like not every macho rock guy can get to. Jeff Beck can sort of do it, and Jan Hammer can kind of do it. I love his playing on Wired. Specifically the song Play With Me is one of my favorite songs of all time. Play With Me is so fucking cool. All right, that was a fun question though. To be honest, Supertramp is missing tons of guitar. Do you have any favorite songs of theirs? Mine is School and Bloody Well Right. Supertramp, you know, a lot of the vocals are hard for me with this group. There's like a please mommy quality to those singers that I can't explain. It's just like they're very much, their songs are sort of like, mommy, I'm in a rock band, did you notice? Like, I'm just like, bro, who the fuck are you talking to like that? You know what I mean? I people like it, I guess, but there's just a sort of like, you know, mommy, can I have another glass of milk? Like, that's to me what those singers sound like. It's very off-putting. But you know, some of their songs, I feel like I like Take the Long Way Home, I guess. There's sort of an emotional thing happening there that sometimes gets me. It gets me and I'm like, oh, am I being affected by this? Okay, all right, okay, good for you guys. You got me. Yeah, there's not a ton of guitar. I don't care about that. You know, some of those saxophone solos I think are a little cheesy, but it's not the end of the world. Oh, somebody else had a question. There was another question I forgot that I wanted to do. Yeah, okay. Oh, wait, look, I missed a bunch of stuff. Zappa has 70 or so albums. There is nothing there. There is something there for everybody. I rarely listen to Zappa tunes that have vocals or super abstract parts. Okay, I guess, you know, good on you for pointing out that if you're going to reject Zappa, you have to reject 70 albums worth of it. And I guess, you know, I can't really know what I'm missing. But on the other hand, if you think I'm going to listen to 70 fucking Frank Zappa albums before I can rightfully say, well, I listened to all of it and no, there's nothing there for me, I'm just not going to do that. I'm pretty sure the best case scenario for me would be like, oh, yeah. I mean, look, his guitar playing is kind of cool. You know, it's sort of frenzied and like gross, but you know, it's got a vibe. I like Frank Zappa's guitar playing more than, you know, whatever fucking guitar playing you get in like a Billy Joel song. So, you know, there's that. But there's also, you know what though? How about this? I'm sorry to do this, but I'm going to tell you, I got bigger fucking problems with Frank Zappa too. There's like a kind of like smart guy thing that I just don't care for. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like people have the sense that like, you know, what's the smartest thing you could ever do is a satire. And so I'm going to do a very smart satire. And I just feel like it's not that cool and it's not that fun to just make fun of another thing. I don't like that, never really impresses me. And I feel like there's this sort of like middle brow, not quite as smart as they think it is, like pseudo intellectual energy that is like what you get from people who are like very, very, very committed to satire. And that's how I feel about a lot of Frank Zappa. Also, you know, he did write that album that is like all satire that did not age well. You know what the one I'm thinking of, The Thing Fish or something, where it's like about a bunch of feminists go crazy and then like and there's like a bunch of people get AIDS and like then like everybody turns gay. It was like, you know, he was trying to be political and like play with the issues of the 80s or whatever, but like I don't think it's aged that well, you know. So if you guys so smart, how come that album is such a fucking train wreck? And then last thing, here's the real crime. There's a Frank Zappa song. You know, you didn't know that I was gonna know this much about Frank Zappa, did you? When I said that I don't like him, and you're like, well, he's got 70 albums. You didn't know that I was gonna start showing up with fucking receipts about like the lesser known Frank Zappa works, and yet here I am. Yeah, there's a Frank Zappa song called "Why Don't You Like Me," where he just makes fun of Michael Jackson. Now, it's true that I'm a Michael Jackson fan. I think it's okay to make fun of Michael Jackson, though. You know, a lot of people have made me laugh making fun of Michael Jackson. Eddie Murphy in Delirious makes fun of Michael Jackson. It's really funny. Chris Rock's Michael Jackson bits are good. Chris Tucker's Michael Jackson bits are good. Cat Williams's Michael Jackson bits are good. Steve Harvey's Michael Jackson bits are good. Like a lot of people have made fun of Michael Jackson and put a smile on my face. That's not the problem. But I don't think the Frank Zappa song making fun of Michael Jackson is very funny. And I also don't think it sounds good. And I also just sort of feel like, why didn't you just try to make a cool song that sounded good? What happened to that? Why did you just make a song where you make fun of Michael Jackson and then it sounds dumb? You know what songs sound better than that song? Or Michael Jackson songs? You know what I mean? Go listen to Why Don't You Like Me by Frank Zappa. And it's like at the end of the song, they like play the Billie Jean riff, but they play it really fast. And they play it so fast that it sounds dumb. And then they riff on the lyrics to Billie Jean. And they say a bunch of silly nonsense Frank Zappa jokes. And to me, that's like a perfect example of what my issue is. It's like, yeah, the Billie Jean riff is cool if you play it at the right tempo, and you're playing it at the wrong tempo. You know what I mean? So why, like, I like records where they spent a lot of time figuring out how it should sound, and then that's what they did. You know what I mean? Thriller, for instance. What if you took some of that and you just played it too fast and ruined it? Like, well, why would I listen to that? You know what I mean? I don't know. There's just it's to me, it's all done in the spirit of like, I'm a smart guy, so I'm going to do satire, and who am I going to go after? I'll go after Michael Jackson, and I'll ruin one of his songs. Like, it's totally cool to go after Michael Jackson. You know, there's issues there that we ignore at our own peril, but I just have no desire to listen to music that is just sort of like, and it reminds me of going to like summer camp, and there's like the kid at the lunch table who like knows all the words to the Monty Python films, which I like. But then every time you say anything, he just sort of snorts and is like, you sound like the Knights Who Say Knee. Like, and you're just like, bro, we're just trying to eat lunch at summer camp and have fun. That's, to me, that's who Frank Zappa is. I'm really sorry. I tried to say the nicest things I could about him. You know what I mean? I said that his guitar playing was kind of frenzied and gross. There's a quality there that I sort of prefer to certain other things. I stand by that. Dweezil Zappa is a good musician. And the guys in his band, you know, some of them were cool. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. You guys going shit in the, you guys going crazy in the comments. Oh, whoa, look at this. Emily, I'm sorry I missed you. Big day for you and me. Look who's here, Emily Hopkins. Did you leave? Did you come in when I was in the middle of like cursing and being crazy, and you're like, oh, this is Ivan. I can't deal with this. This is the side of Ivan I'm not ready for. Did you leave? I'm sorry if I drove you away. But for those of you who don't know, I'm in the video that Emily put out today on her channel. I was waiting for this for a while to come out. Me and Emily collaborated on a bunch of stuff, and it's really cool. I feel like we had a good thing going, and oh no, here she is. Hey, that's amazing. All right, great. Okay, cool. Yeah, me and Emily are BFFs now. I'm friends with Russ too. We're gonna start a band called Lab Partners. You know, I'm in a video that she put out on her channel today about Bit Crushers. That's fucking cool. Guess what? That's not the only video I'm going to be in. I'm in like a bunch of videos she's going to put out. It was super fun. I went out to Long Island, had a blast with them. We got burgers. We spent the whole day talking about gear. If you ever just sort of imagined like how cool would it be to hang out with Cyber Attack and Emily Hopkins, it would be that cool. And we did think it was that cool. And we had a great time. So Emily, when we put out all those videos, let's make more. All right. I'm ready to get back out there. Driving to Long Island was kind of rough. I listened to like a bazillion CDs in my car, but even that was okay because I just felt like being a teenager again. All right, cool. So anyway, yeah, it's good to be friends. It's good to be friends. Look at this question. Have you dabbled with alternate tunings? I find artists like Joni Mitchell, Sonic Youth, and Chavez all have wild approaches stemming from open and different tunings. You know, open tunings, different tunings are great. But I don't know anything about them. I really don't. You know, I can't. That's like the pedal board of tunings. different tunings is like using pedals on your tunings. So obviously I respect it on that level, you know. But I don't know other tunings. I wish I had more to say about this. I mean, the band I was talking about before, Sweet Fix, we had a couple songs in Drop D that were cool. But we tuned down a half step too, like Guns N' Roses. So they were in Drop D, a half step down. So like they were kind of fucking heavy and low. And I always kind of liked those songs. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds kind of heavy. But I don't know a lot about it. I'm uneducated. I don't know. There was a while when I was a teenager, you know, this was before Wendy Carlos opened my mind. So there was a while when I was a teenager and I was like kind of, you know, I was trying to be this like black belt guitarist. You know, like I was on the cross country team. I had like a very sort of like stoic kind of like, you know, squinting, like tense, like, I don't know, athletic approach to certain things that I wanted. And guitar playing was one of them. And so there was a while when I like set certain rules in order to make progress as a guitar player faster. I was like kind of a psycho as a teenager. And so I set these rules for myself when I was like 15 or 16. One of them was no whammy bar. Now, many of my favorite guitar players have done crazy shit with whammy bars. Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, Jeff Beck, all those guys do incredible shit with whammy bars. But I was just like, it's played out. I'm not going to break new ground with that. And maybe I could, but in order to break new ground with it, it would take so long. And in the in-between part of it, I would just sound so cliche that I was like, I don't want to have to put in that much time to sound that cliche for that long, just to then someday find a new thing on a whammy bar. It's like, we don't have time to waste. Okay. We don't have time to waste. I don't want to be a fucking corny cliche dipshit. So no whammy bars. When Eddie Van Halen does it, I'm going to love it, but that was then and this is now. So one of the rules was no whammy bars. And another rule was only standard tuning. This was before the band I talked about. This was before that. This was when I was in high school still. I was like, only standard tuning, because I was like, it's a shortcut otherwise. And I'll tell you why. It's because Master of Puppets was like the fucking heaviest record ever made, which I probably still believe. And that record's in standard. And so it's like, if those guys can sound that fucking crazy and evil in standard tuning, then I'm going to take myself to the same standard. And even though it's cool to tune down and that shit sounds heavy and cool, I'm just going to find ways to write riffs that sound heavy and cool anyway on the strength of the writing. That was another one of the rules I set for myself. And I think I had a third one. What was the third rule? Maybe I don't remember what it is. What was the third rule? Fuck. It might have been like no wah-wah, maybe. Maybe I was like, I'm not going to do wah-wah. It's sort of the same as the first one. I relaxed on the tuning thing later in life, but I still sort of had that deficit. Like I sort of refuse. It's like those women warriors in the Amazon who would burn off their breast so they could like use a bow and arrow better. I'm comparing myself to them. You know, the breast was gone forever after that. And in this analogy, my breast was knowledge of other tunings. And so I just sort of introduced a lifelong deficit to myself. But if you want to be equal to the great Amazon warriors of the past, you too will have to make sacrifices. There's just no way around it. So that's one of the sacrifices I made. As a result, I'm stunted for life. and I don't really know about alternate tunings. And sometimes I wish that I did, but maybe I'll learn about them. Okay. What's this question comment? Good night. Do you think it makes good? That's advanced. That's advanced when you just start talking to somebody and the first thing you say is good night. Do you think it makes sense to try to make ambient music with the bass guitar? I mean, sometimes the limitation seems to be a problem, but it seems to be a differentiator. Yeah, look, I don't fucking know. I mean, one, I don't have a bass guitar, and two, I don't even really understand what ambient music is. So that's who you're talking to. But the answer is, yeah, it doesn't sound that like a problem to me. Just fucking do it, dude. You know, I mean, listen to it and see if it sounds good. Sometimes I hear solo bass players do shit where they like try to expand the range of the bass, and they like start hitting harmonics and shit, and they like put octave pedals on their bass. I think sometimes that stuff sounds kind of cliche and bad. So don't do that. But I don't think there's any reason not to try to make ambient music with a bass guitar. The limitations are good, dude. Here's the last thing I'll say. This is good it's good to hold your body like this when you talk to people on the internet. Here's the last thing I'll say. I read an interview once. I'm going to forget most of the important details here. I read somewhere once that like when Stanley Kubrick made A Clockwork Orange, he like his career actually wasn't doing very well, and he didn't have a lot of money. Like they didn't get a big budget for it, which is that seems wrong to me because that was after 2001. But maybe 2001 like didn't do well at first. I don't know. Maybe it like caught up later. But the point of the story is, as I remember it, Stanley Kubrick was making A Clockwork Orange, and there was like no budget, and he had to economize in all these ways. And one of the ways he economized was normally you like have these big lights that are off screen. Like you have your set, and then outside the camera lens, there's like all these fucking expensive lights lighting it. And he like, one way he decided to economize was to not do that part, which is like normally fatal, because like without light, nothing's going to look good on film. Something someone once told me before I started making music videos is that having good light and a bad camera is much better than having an expensive camera with no light. And I've found that to be true in my own work. Anyway, Stanley Kubrick, it's like, well, I'm sort of past that. So he was like, we don't need those big fucking lights. You know what we're going to do? This movie's set in the future. So I'm just going to buy fucking like weird lights that we just put in the scene, and we'll just say that in the future, that's what people's houses look like. And then in the future, people buy lighting fixtures that look sort of dumb. And then I'll use those lights to light the scenes. Now, the problem with that is that those lights don't really have like the throw and the range that like the big lights do. So then he was like, that's okay. Because I'm just going to hold the camera and we'll shoot all these interiors as handheld tracking shots, and I'll just be sort of running around shooting them. And he could do that because he was good at that. Before he was a director, I think he was like a actually professional photographer. I think he was like a photojournalist maybe for a while. Maybe he was just good with cameras. I don't fucking know. Point is that Stanley Kubrick was like, we'll just light the interiors of A Clockwork Orange with these interior lights, and then I'll run around with the camera making sure that I never get stupid shadows and that the light always kind of works. And I'll solve the problem with where I point the camera. And so that was a limitation that, you know, ended up contributing to this sort of bizarre futuristic feeling of A Clockwork Orange, down to the level of the camera motion. So, you know, you should look at this as that. You should be like, I am going to make ambient music with a bass, and I'm going to lean into the issues there, and I'm going to try to solve the problems with that as creatively as Stanley Kubrick did. That's what I say to myself all the time. You know, Stanley Kubrick was good, so it's hard. It's hard to, you know, it's going to be hard to top that. But that's what you should be trying to do. And that's also sort of why, like, when I started making my own music videos, I was like, man, I don't have a lot of assets. I'm not like a fucking filmmaker. I had my friend John, who did go to film school and had a camera. And I had a bunch of action figures, and I was like, is there any way you could just do some stop motion shit with the action figures? Because I had a bunch, and I was sure he would say no. I was going to be like, no, dude, action, like, that's hard. Stop motion is hard. But he'd never done it before. And he was like, yeah, I bet we could do it. And I was like, for real? He was like, I don't know. I bet. So he started making these action figure stop motion things. Just, he'd never done stop motion before. He just like looked up a video how to do it and then did it. And then I was like, well, that's fucking cool, but where are we going to put them? So then I just started like Googling to see if like you could find the like backgrounds of video games or like sprites of video games. And you can. We live in an amazing time. Well, I mean, I don't know. Is it worth losing Roe v. Wade? Probably not. But apart from that, we live in a sort of an amazing time on the internet, as long as you don't need an abortion, where you can sort of Google things and get them, right? You can Google like, do the sprites of Sonic the Hedgehog exist? And could I download the sprites? And the answer is yes. Or like the background levels of Street Fighter 2. Could I download and then just use as a JPEG the background of Ryu's level in Street Fighter 2? And the answer is yes, you can do that. So then I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. And then I was like, what would be funny is if I could just sort of do that with my hometown. And then I was like, oh, you can. I'll just look up my hometown on Google Street View. And I was like, this is great. I don't need to leave my house. I don't need to get a camera. I've never bought a camera. Right now, I'm using the camera on my laptop. And when I have to shoot my videos, I use my cell phone. You know what I mean? I was like, do I really need to buy any of this shit? Maybe I could just use the shit that I have. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. You tell me. But the point is that, oh, yeah. So I just decided, like, I don't have anything. Maybe I can just Google image search shit and take screen recordings of myself walking around my hometown on Google Street View, and then I'll just use that. So you could do anything you want. We're going to end the Ask Me Anything on this. That's all there is. You can do whatever you want. You could do anything you want at any time. Okay. You don't really need to watch my videos anymore, everybody. That's all there is to it. You could do whatever you want. Okay. Just be serious about it. Be fucking serious, and cultivate within yourself a relentless desire to be serious at all times. It doesn't mean you can't have a sense of humor. It just means you can't be sort of like a joke, and then everything's going to be good. Everything's going to be good. All right. I'm getting a lot of comments at the end here. Listen, thanks for being a part of this, everybody. What is this? It's not worth it, but I'm glad you said something, Ivan. What is that a reference to? I have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry. Anyway, this is the Roe v. Wade thing. Oh, yeah. That's what you're talking about. Great. Well, I'm glad we're all on the same side with that. Cool. Glad I'm not losing anybody over my very reasonable political beliefs. That's always reassuring. And listen, thank you, everybody, for being a part of this. Thank you, everybody, for contributing to the chat culture and asking me such cool questions and supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it. My favorite part about all this is doing this. I really enjoy doing these. For the questions I didn't get to and the comments I missed, I'm really sorry. Feel free to be upset about that. You can let me have it. You leave a comment under the video. You can show up in the next one. You have a right to be upset and you have a right to be hostile. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time. Oh, it's taken me an awkward amount of time to get to my little ending music, though, isn't it? That's like when you say goodbye to somebody and then you're like both walking in the same direction. And so you just like cross the street together and then you have to say goodbye again. I just did like the live stream version of that. Terrible. Oh, what did I do? Then I just like clicked the thing wrong. Oh man, I'm really fucking up the ending of my own live stream. Well, this is going to live in my channel forever, but I feel like nobody's going to watch all 152 minutes of this. So it's really only 23 people watching now who saw this. This will be our secret, 23 people. We'll take this to the grave.